That's a great welcome. Thank you. Hello, Humboldt County. Oh, what a great feeling to be with all of you here in Humboldt today. It's windy out there. Someone should propose an offshore wind project. This would be a perfect spot for that. We have a lot to talk about here today. And I just want to start by thanking the city of Eureka and the folks here at the Adorni Center for making this beautiful venue available. I've been told to urge people to fill the seats in the middle because there are a lot of folks still looking for a chair. It is amazing to see this kind of a turnout. And gosh, I just wonder, how did George Soros find and pay all of you? He has really outdone himself here today. As you're coming in, come on in, folks. There's still a few chairs. Raise your hand if there's an empty seat near you. Okay, look for a hand, and let's fill in as best we can. But folks, I love doing town halls, and I used to do them all the time. The pandemic kind of caused everything to go a little bit off the rails. But it feels great to be back in this thing and doing a lot more of these. You know, now that our politics are normal again, we can resume those kind of things. And I feel like it's so important because obviously this is what democracy is all about. It's a chance for you to have direct access to your elected representatives, to hold me accountable, to ask me to explain and defend the positions that I'm taking on your behalf back in Washington. And it's a chance for me to hear from you and stay connected with all of you. I think it's also a chance for all of us to show what a healthy civil discourse can look like. So I welcome everyone here, regardless of your politics, regardless of your point of view. Your perspectives are welcome. In fact, I love the give and take of challenging each other with different ideas. So thank you for being here, and we're going to have a great conversation. The way this is going to go is my staff, as we get into the question part of the program, my staff will be working the room with remote microphones, and they are under strict orders to hold on to the microphone. So don't be alarmed when they come to you. You'll raise your hand, and they will come to you as best they can. They'll move throughout the room. We're not censoring or filtering. We're going to try to just kind of move around and get to as many of you as we can. But let them hold the microphone because that allows us to keep some measure of control over things. When we get to your questions, please try to keep it to 1 or 2 minutes. You can say almost anything in 1 or 2 minutes. And that enables us to get to as many of you as we possibly can. If the question or comment has already been made by others, please consider not doing it again so that we can cover lots of ground here together. And lastly, before we get started, I want to acknowledge some officials who are with us here today. I'm so honored that Humboldt County Supervisor Michelle Bushnell's here. Thank you, Michelle. The Mayor of Arcata, Alex Stillman, is here. Our Humboldt County Superintendent of Schools, Michael Davies Hughes. And I am told that my old pal from the California legislature, Wesley Chesbro, is here. Can that be true? There he is. All right. Good to see you, Wes. Folks, we are going to cover some sobering and grim information here today. I'm not going to sugarcoat it, but I think before we get too deeply into that, I would like to start with some good news. Because despite all of the chaos and calamity of our politics, we were actually able to do some big and I think pretty transformative things in the last few years. Starting with something that some of you, if you are retirees, may have noticed just in the last few weeks. Some of you may have gotten a lot of money from the Social Security Administration because if you spent part of your working years in a public pension program, let's say you were a teacher or a firefighter, we had this terrible policy on the books called the windfall elimination provision that dramatically reduced your Social Security benefits, your earned benefits you paid into throughout your working years. We finally, after many years, and I co-sponsored this bill every single year, we finally got it to President Biden's desk and got it signed into law. And you are, it's just making a huge difference for a lot of retirees. Now, I do want to clarify that even though that large check is coming to you now in the year 2025, Donald Trump had nothing to do with it, okay? We got that signed into law under the Biden administration, but I just want to make that absolutely clear. And I think you're also aware of some of the huge funding victories that we've had up and down my district for things like federal support for affordable housing, veterans housing, all kinds of long overdue transportation and water and clean energy infrastructure projects, including a lot of things right here in Humboldt. Of course, the $426 million that we got to retrofit a defunct facility here in the harbor and make it into the state-of-the-art modern heavy-lift marine terminal that will support the offshore wind industry. Now, we're still going to have to fight for that funding because you know about some of the politics that are coming into play with offshore wind, but we are going to fight to make that the transformative infusion of federal investment that I know it can be, and I still think it will be. $37 million for the Klamath River Basin. We're so proud of bringing this river back to life. And this funding is going to enable restoration efforts throughout the watershed, because you can't just stop once you get the river flowing freely again. There's a lot more work that needs to be done. $37 million will help do that. $15 million for restoration of forests and watersheds in the Redwood National and State Parks. Super important. And so many different community projects that I was able to direct funding to, including an amazing one that is just coming online in Willow Creek, the Dream Quest Youth Facility there. Just one more piece of good news that I will share. A couple months ago, I was elected by my colleagues in Congress to be the ranking Democrat on the House Natural Resources Committee. Thank you. That is something that has been a long-term aspiration of mine, and I think it puts me in a great position right now to defend against some really wrong-headed policies on the environment and natural resources. But in the long term, I think to really help direct some good wins and outcomes on policies that are near and dear to many of us. It's also part of something that I'm excited about, the generational change in the Congress, because I got this title because I had the audacity to challenge a very long-standing senior member. And by doing that and winning that, I kind of opened the door to several of my other colleagues who did the same thing. And so it's why we now have new leadership at the Judiciary Committee with Jamie Raskin, who is just a fantastic leader. And it's why we have new Democratic leaders at the House Agriculture Committee and the House Oversight Committee. So I think all of that is good news, but look, I'm real clear on why probably most of you are here. I think you are all really reeling, as I am, from this wave of executive orders unlike anything that we have ever seen, from the wrecking ball of DOGE, from the on-again, off-again tariffs that seem to change almost by the hour, and the economic chaos that all of this is unleashing, and just everything else that's in the news right now. I know that it's a lot to worry about and to stress about, and I know if I were sitting in your chairs, I would want to know, does my congressman understand this moment, and what the heck is he doing about it? So, with your indulgence, I would like to just sort of share with you my take on where we are. And again, I'm not going to sugarcoat it at all. I don't think it's hopeless, okay? We're going to talk about some reasons that I believe there is hope, and we should have a lot of resolve and optimism as we go forward. But I'm going to be very clear about the peril of this moment. The truth is, I have never been more worried and alarmed about the direction of this country. And that is not just because my party lost the election and I'm in the minority in Congress. It is a whole set of concerns about things that really shouldn't be any part of partisan politics. And that starts with the lurch toward authoritarianism and this breakout to dictatorship as I see it with this president. I see it in the way he is flouting the law and constantly testing whether the legal system or Congress or anyone else will stop him as he pushes all of these legal boundaries. I see it in the way that Republicans in Congress, unlike anything I've ever seen before, seem to have forgotten that we are a separate and independent branch of government that the founders put right up front. Article 1 of the Constitution, the branch of government with the most power, directly representative of the people, the ultimate way to prevent the abuse of presidential power, to correct illegality and corruption. And that's why all of these incredible powers were vested in Congress. The power of the purse, to have control over how and where and why we spend money together in our national government. The power to declare war, the power over trade, the power to give advice and consent for the president's nominees to cabinet positions, the power to impeach and remove a president. I mean, clearly our founders envisioned Congress playing the biggest role in checking the abuse of power, and this Congress thinks that it works for Donald Trump. And that is a big constitutional problem. Unlike anything I think our founders could have ever imagined it. So, we see it with the way they have sort of cheered on Elon Musk and this unaccountable, off-the-books shadow government that we've created with Doge. We see it in the way with the recent partisan funding bill that passed a couple weeks ago. Instead of specifically directing the way that money is going to be spent, instead of correcting some of the what we call impoundment abuses of this administration, just allocated a whole bunch of money in lump sums, surrendering all of Congress's power of the purse authority and the ability to direct and oversee how that all works. We see this breakout to authoritarianism, retribution agenda that is becoming so over the top, with President Trump going after his political opponents in ways we have certainly never seen, the way he's trying to control and punish the free press, the way he is going after judges and law firms, not for anything they've done, but just because they were on the other side. Yeah. The way he is exalting vigilante violence, I mean, from pardoning the January 6th insurrectionists to now talking about actually rewarding them and trying to make them into some twisted type of American hero. The way he's trying to control and rewrite history and culture. The way he's trying to govern by edict. Basically, whatever idea pops in his head, out goes an executive order, and we assume that that's now the law unless someone stops it. We've just never seen anything like this, and all of it is just straight out of the authoritarian playbook. It is the way we have seen dictators take power time and time again throughout history. So that is probably concern number one for me right now about this moment. I'm also really concerned about the chaos and incompetence of Doge, which is totally extra-legal. These are not real government officials. They have no experience in government or public service. And so what they're doing is wildly indiscriminate, and we see the incompetence all over the place. There's so many examples where they waded into federal agencies, ordered a bunch of layoffs and closures and other things, and then realized, oops, those are air traffic controllers over here. We can't do that. And by the way, did you know that the week before we had the worst aviation disaster in 16 years, Elon Musk and Doge asked every single air traffic controller in the nation to retire and to leave their jobs. And to this day, every single week, every air traffic controller in America has to stop what they're doing and write a memo to lay out 5 things they did this week to justify the continued existence of their job. Air traffic controllers. So I have met with them, I've talked to them, and they tell me, yeah, it's just cut and paste at this point. Like, we saved lives. We kept people from having airplane accidents. But each week they've got to go through this ridiculous exercise, and that's happening throughout the federal government. They did it with the Western Power Administration, basically the folks at these agencies that keep the lights on throughout the West, the Bonneville Power folks, the other power marketing authorities that are not even funded by taxpayers. So all of this stuff will not save the Treasury any money, but they did it anyway. They laid people off. They gave them this fork in the road memo, and so all these personnel are leaving the power marketing authorities, and there is a huge risk as we head into the summer that our ability to maintain the grid and to enter the power purchase agreements and do other things to keep the lights on is going to be compromised because of this misplaced effort by DOGE and this completely unaccountable effort. Now, if all of that was not bad enough, creating this sort of shadow government without any experience or competency or accountability, it's being done by the richest man in the world, who has been handed the keys to all of these agencies that regulate his businesses, that have authority to decide his federal government contracts, which are a huge part of his wealth. And he's been given access, unthinkably, to our most sensitive personal and financial data, which he is feeding into his AI engine in order to have an advantage, a competitive advantage over his AI competitors. And he believes one day not only eliminate all of these federal employees, but replace them with his AI product and make even more money. That's what's going on before our eyes. It is deeply corrupt, and it doesn't stop with just this one richest man in the world. The Trump family has enriched itself to the tune of billions of dollars with cryptocurrency schemes endorsed and promoted by your government. And we have all of these other oligarchs. There's at least 3 billionaires in this cabinet. I've never seen anything quite like that. And it goes beyond that, because you've got Zuckerberg and Bezos and Tim Cook and everyone else bending the knee and bowing and scraping to Donald Trump. When I became the top Democrat at the Natural Resources Committee, one of the obligations that goes along with that is I have to attend this ceremonial lunch with the newly inaugurated president on Inauguration Day, in a room smaller than this, so it's very intimate. I'm in there with Donald Trump and his family, and I'm surrounded by billionaires. It was unlike anything I've ever seen. Literally 10 feet behind me was Jeff Bezos, sitting next to Barron Trump, and I can overhear their conversation. And I can overhear Jeff Bezos kissing up to this kid, Barron Trump, and telling him what a brilliant and insightful young man he is. I mean, the level of sycophancy with billionaires trying to curry favor was unlike anything I've ever seen. So look, when Bernie and AOC and others are out there fighting against the oligarchy, they're not making this stuff up. We absolutely have an oligarchy problem right now in the United States. I'll mention just a couple other things about this moment and my concern. I'm concerned about the loss of our values, about the basic erosion of decency and what I consider to be some of the highest American values. The way this president is vilifying our Democratic allies, turning away from them, turning toward dictators, brutal dictators, including Putin and his war of aggression with Ukraine. I am concerned about the way there seems to be a delight in cruelty, in singling out some of the most vulnerable folks in our country and taking away life-saving programs and services and other things and kind of delighting in the suffering. You know, we've always had our differences in this country, spirited differences sometimes. But I can tell you as a Democrat, I have never wanted my Republican neighbors, my fellow Americans who are Republicans, to be afraid or to suffer or to feel some kind of retribution, or for one half of the country to hate each other, to hate the other half just because of their political party. And all of that is just happening now at a level that is completely disturbing to me, and I think terrible for the long-term durability of our nation, of our republic. So that's sort of where we are, and now you probably want to know what I'm doing about it. And I will just tell you that I'm doing everything I can. I am fighting this in every way I can with every tool at my disposal. And while I'm doing that, my staff and I have never been busier because we've got to keep governing as we fight this existential fight to save democracy. We're trying to help people navigate through all sorts of problems that they continue to have. We're trying to keep the lights on. And I say we're working harder than ever because in the middle of that juggling act, we know that we've got to take our communications game to the next level. We've got to make sure people understand what's going on, know what we're doing about it. And so I'm just really trying to be more active in that space than I ever have before. The information system that we have in this country, how people get and consume news and information has changed so much. And so we know that it's going to be fractured, it's going to be incomplete, it's going to be wrong in many cases. And that's why I want to do as many of these town halls and public forums. You're going to see me doing all kinds of other communication platforms to try to just break through this really broken and challenging information system in this country. I'll mention just one last thing, and then we will get to the good stuff, your questions, and we'll have a conversation. Everywhere I go these days, I am asked, what can we do? What should we do? And you're probably, many of you I see nodding already in this room. I will tell you that there is no formula or playbook for how each of us needs to navigate this moment. We'll all have to kind of figure it out in our way, but I will just share with you what I'm trying to do. Because you cannot afford for me to get overwhelmed, to wallow in despair. I got to get back in that arena every single day and fight for all of you so that I can be effective. And the way I'm trying to do that is to be selective. You can't swing at every single pitch. And so I'm trying to focus my effort. I mean, believe me, I could be outraged almost by the minute right now just watching my news feed. But what I'm trying to focus on are what are the things I can do that have the best chance of stopping something really bad from happening. And sometimes I've got to focus on things where I have a moral or a legal obligation to be in the fight, even if I might not win it. And other times I've got to have some righteous fights that I'm probably going to lose in the short term. But I know in the long term it's absolutely necessary to begin the fight now so that we can have that ultimate long-term victory. But I know each of you are going to find your own way to make a difference in this moment. And believe it or not, just by being here, that I think is part of the answer. Being together in community with other people that care about our country and care enough to show up and be part of a town hall. So thank you for that. Let's go to your questions. All right, my staff is going to find their way to you as best we can.
Representative.
Where am I? Let me find you.
Right over here, Jerry.
Here we go. Okay, thanks.
I appreciate your being here. I have a lot of concerns, but my biggest concern is that I receive all sorts of information from Democrats asking for money and telling me how they're going to destroy the Republicans. I don't care what happens to the Republicans. I don't want to be a part of destroying them. That's not our values. I want to know what they are doing about things, just as you're saying here today. And look around. Not only are we here, all over the country, we are showing up. And we need our leaders to tell us what to do. Tell us how we can.
Thank you for that question. Look, some of you probably get these shrill emails from politicians, the world is ending and so forth. And some of them, yeah, they may take that very pugilistic tone, and we got to destroy the other side. I'm completely uninterested in that, and I hope you've never seen an email from me saying that stuff, because I will have a tough conversation with my communications team to make sure that stops right away. I hate it. I hate the toxicity of it, and it happens on both sides of the political spectrum. My advice to all of you is just put that stuff in your spam filter and ignore it, because it's not, in my opinion, productive. So, you know, that's all I can tell you. The second part of your question, though, I've already forgot. I got so upset about the emails.
What do we do?
What to do?
Tell us.
All right. And here it is. This is like the question I get so much these days. Tell us what to do. I think I'm a pretty good congressman. I think I know environmental policy, and I've learned, and this is my 13th year now representing you, how to kind of work through this weird institution back in Washington and move the levers of power as best I can. I've learned how to do it both in the majority and in the minority, and believe me, it's a totally different toolbox when you're in the minority. And so I know the stuff that I need to do. What I'm not, though, is a community organizer or, you know, a life coach or anything else. And so I have a little humility when I'm asked, what could we do? And I don't mean to duck the question, but, you know, honestly, I think each of you should just do what you feel makes a difference in your community, in your family. And I do want to emphasize that being here and engaging politically in stuff like this is, I think, part of the answer to your question. Don't be alone. That's my other advice. I'm sounding a little bit like a life coach here. Do not sit at home alone and doom scroll through your social media feed. And certainly don't do it on Twitter, because that thing is completely toxic. It will just spin you into a depression or a state of rage or some other mental state that's totally unproductive. Be careful about where you get your information. Be thoughtful about it. Don't swing at every pitch. Be with other people. Don't be alone. That's about as far as I can go by way of advice, but I think it's pretty good advice. Yeah. Hi.
Hello, my name is Alexandria Rumble. I'm a public educator in Humboldt County.
I'll repeat it. How's that?
Yeah, if I can speak louder, I am a teacher.
I can hear it up here, but... All right, use your teacher voice.
All right, my name is Alexandria Rumble. I'm a teacher at McKinleyville High School. I'm also a graduate student researcher at Cal Poly Humboldt.
Yeah.
Last year, in April, you voted in favor for the Israel Supplemental Securities Act. I would like to say that I'm absolutely not in favor of you voting for our tax dollars to fund armament. And now that Israel has broken the ceasefire, I want to know what you are going to do to ensure the end of the genocide against the Palestinian people.
Got it. I think everybody can hear that question. It is about Gaza and Israel and a vote that I took a year ago to support military assistance to Israel, which is something that the United States has always supported. So look, I'm going to answer your question. I don't think we're going to agree on some of the details, but I think we all can agree that what's been unfolding in Gaza is horrific. I have been horrified by the way this war has been carried out. I'm even more horrified by the fact that under this new administration, there seems to be a desire to rubber stamp even more of it, and to actually go into displacing as much as 2 million Palestinians from Gaza and the West Bank. Back to the corruption thing I talked about at the beginning. Donald Trump openly talks about using U.S. foreign policy and even the military to help drive these Palestinians out of Gaza and then go in and build condos and resorts. So we're in a dark place right now. We just are in the process of confirming the ambassador to Israel, former Governor Mike Huckabee. Yeah, I feel the same way, trust me. Who believes that Israel has a biblical birthright to all of these lands, and that he supports annexation and thinks that everyone else should just move out. So look, my vote, as is often the case on things like Middle East policy, not a vote between something that was totally good and something that was totally bad. I am often asked to choose between two bad things. And in my view, supporting the military aid that the State of Israel needs to defend its people while trying to use our influence to change government policies in Israel, because I don't like the current Israeli government. I oppose them on all sorts of things. But I don't want to throw the people of Israel under the bus because they are in a uniquely vulnerable situation. They have been since 1948. So that's the answer. I don't like what's been happening. I don't know how I'll vote the next time this question comes up because we're in a new place. But I tried to use our influence to redirect the Israeli government and the Israeli war plan, and it didn't work. So I'm not happy with the outcome either, but again, the choice often is between two lousy choices, and that's why I made the one I did.
Okay, my name is Stuart Altschuler. I'm on the Humboldt County Democratic Central Committee, and I teach at College of the Redwoods in the Addiction Studies program. So we train entry-level addiction counselors, and many of our students are in recovery themselves. So I finally read what I have been anticipating is that RFK Jr. is now looking at mental health and addiction and treatment cuts, nationwide homeless programs, as well as food stamps, all that stuff. I know you support these programs, okay? It's terrifying to me to think that money's going to be cut from treatment programs, prevention programs, all the things that are totally necessary, especially in a county like Humboldt, which has one of the highest addiction rates and problems and homelessness. So I don't need to hear that you support these programs, because I know that. I would like to know what you and other Democrats specifically can do to keep this from happening.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Well, thanks, Stuart, and thank you for your good work in this space. It is true that a lot of the science-based treatments and programs and just critical services are in danger right now. We have a singularly unqualified person running the Department of Health and Human Services, RFK Jr. So you are right to be very worried about this. And of course, in addition to the policy shifts that he wants, that many of which would take us away from science, away from proven therapies and services that we need, but he wants to destroy the workforce of this agency. So just your ability to process grants and to get the administrative support to try to keep the lights on in places that are serving this community is going to be imperiled. What am I able to do about it? Well, I am in the minority of this Congress. We're going to have to win an election for me to have the full set of tools in the House of Representatives where we can use our oversight authority, where we can reclaim our power of the purse authority, where we can do some of the things that would put us in position to hold this administration in check. And in the meantime, I will try to make the most of a more limited toolbox, which basically consists of minority oversight, and that often looks like angry letters. We will continue to introduce legislation, to call things out, to use our public platforms, to spotlight bad policies and bad ideas. We're doing all of that as aggressively as we possibly can. I am sure that I'm on multiple letters and pieces of legislation responding to this question in particular. But we are going to need some help from the courts when they try to do things that actually violate the law, which they're doing a lot. There's over 130 lawsuits already right now, and dozens of court decisions checking back these abuses of power by the administration. And many of these decisions are coming from conservative Republican appointing judges. So please don't think, every time Trump loses a case, he claims that judge needs to be impeached and that there's some kind of a woke radical. It's just preposterous. These, in many cases, are rock-ribbed Republicans who've been appointed by other Republicans, including Trump himself, but they're upholding the law, and that's super important. The power of public opinion is also an important part of this equation. You know, Abraham Lincoln had the famous statement that public opinion is everything. When you've got it, when it's with you, you can do anything, and when you don't have it, you can do almost nothing. And so we are going to need, on this issue and on so many others, just a high level of engagement. People showing up at town halls like this all over the country, and I see signs that that's beginning to happen. So let's make sure that addiction treatment, that mental health programs, that our social safety net, that everything all of you came here worried about and concerned about here today continue to be part of that national conversation. And then when we win some elections, I can really go to work.
And the irony is that the most mentally ill president in our history is cutting back on that.
Yeah. I won't repeat that one, but I don't disagree with you, Stuart, okay?
Thank you, Congressman, for being here. My name is Glenn Caldwell. I'm a retired air quality and public health official worker. Thank you so much for the web fairness legislation. Thank you so much. My mom is a kindergartner teacher, fought for that for a long time. So good to see that happen. As the ranking member of the Natural Resources Committee and as a member of the Infrastructure Committee, where do you stand on Governor Newsom's CPUC, which has proposed to break the state's contract with nearly 2 million solar customers, slash their solar credit, slap them with a solar tax? These changes will apply to all solar customers who signed up for solar before 2023 on M1 and M2. At the request of Governor Newsom, the CPUC is now proposing to break 2 million contracts, slash the credit for the energy that we send back to the grid, slap a tax on rooftop solar for anyone who went solar before 2023. Newsom has failed to control the monopoly utility spending, and he has taken $2.5 million from the utilities and their labor union. They have failed to legislate the utilities. Where do you stand on this proposal? Thank you.
I appreciate it. So look, I oppose that. I support residential rooftop solar. I support net metering, all of these things. And I am very clear on the fact that our CPUC has, throughout history, been a little too cozy with the regulated utilities. So that comes back to bite us on things like this. It comes back to bite us on safety problems that sometimes lead to terrible disasters. And so we need to always maintain arm's length between that regulator and the utilities it regulates. And I'm going to stand up for rooftop solar and all types of renewables every single time. The problem is I'm your congressman and not your state legislator, and so my ability to influence the CPUC is very, very limited. But thanks for the question.
Okay, hello. Thank you for everything that you've done environmental-wise. I appreciate that greatly, but I'm worried, by the way, my name is Caroline, I'm worried about people disappearing. Yeah. And what can we do about that? Sometimes the story is better than a specific, like everybody knows about Mahmoud Khalil and he's still in the gulag. But this morning at church, this lady who's been here since 1960 came to the front and held up her green card and said, I'm really worried. Yeah. And she's worried because she's got a big mouth and she's spoken out about things. Right. So, you know, how worried and what can we do? What can we do to preserve our freedom of speech? Thank you.
Thank you. Carol, this is a fantastic question. Carol, and I share the concern in a big way. It's just one of the many dark aspects of what we're living through. It's as if Donald Trump took Project 2025, which he claimed he had nothing to do with it, and said, hold my beer, and has just proceeded to go even beyond the pages of Project 2025 in this march towards dictatorship. And yeah, the arbitrary, random, secretive disappearing of people is happening across the board. Marco Rubio, our Secretary of State, is bragging about the fact that he is kind of combing through student visas looking for protesters who have exercised their First Amendment right, because even if you're not a citizen, when you're in the United States, you have First Amendment rights. That's been the case, that's been the law forever in this country. And Secretary Rubio is boasting about the fact that he's looking for ones who have basically exercised political speech he disagrees with, and then immediately deporting them, canceling their visa, and disappearing them out of the country. This is so disturbing, and you probably all are familiar with that statement from 1930s Germany. You know, first they came for the labor unionists, and I was not a labor unionist, and so I said nothing. Then they came for the socialists, then they came for the Jews, and by the time they came for me, there was no one left to protect me. That's exactly where we are in America right now. So, look, when anyone in this country is singled out and targeted for political speech, that should just cross a red line for every one of us, regardless of your politics. That's fundamentally un-American, and I think unconstitutional. I do believe the courts will determine this stuff to be unconstitutional. The problem is some of these folks are going to be gone by that time. Some of them may be sent off to, you know, some black ops prison in El Salvador, where we don't even have the ability to get information. I'm deeply concerned about the way the Alien Enemies Act of 1798, used only 3 times in our country's history, including for Japanese internment, which is not exactly something we're proud of. The way it is they're attempting to use it to disappear folks that they simply accuse of being part of the Venezuelan gang. And they aren't sharing any basic information. Who are these people? What was the basis for your determination that they were part of this terrible Venezuelan gang? I'm interested in violent gang members not being in this country. I just think there should be a little bit of due process to make sure we're not deporting innocent people. And so, you know, the real answer to your question, what are we going to do about this deeply disturbing thing that is unthinkably happening by our government? We're going to have to support the folks who are lawyered up and fighting this fight in the courts. And if we get to a point where this administration, for the first time in history, starts defying court orders, we are going to have to peacefully take to the streets.
Hi, Chris Gilda. I'm over here, Petroleum Fire Chief, and I'm really concerned about the FEMA SAFER grants and the assistance to firefighter grants, and wonder how you can protect those. I'm also concerned about the National Fire Academy and how funding is going to be cut for that. And then I'm also curious as to whether you could advocate for fire departments that respond to federal lands like we do down on the King Range.
Yeah, thank you, Chief. I think this community appreciates what you do, Chief, and your colleagues. I certainly know I do, but you know, there's a couple of things in your question that I'll try to unpack. The first one has to do with FEMA. And, you know, almost no agency is spared right now from this indiscriminate action by DOJ and these unaccountable non-experts that are ransacking through our government. And, you know, the idea that we are going to eliminate FEMA, and apparently Donald Trump has come to believe that we should eliminate FEMA. We should devolve that responsibility back to the states. Any of us who have lived through federal disasters knows how reckless and unrealistic that is. You know, it's bad enough that he's asking federal employees throughout the government to stop the important work that they're doing and to spend their time combing through websites and materials and deleting words that are trigger words for the MAGA Republicans. Don't talk about climate. Remove that word. Remove pictures of the Enola Gay, apparently, because that makes us uncomfortable. These MAGA thought police are bringing a lot of inefficiency to government as they say they're looking for waste, fraud, and abuse and trying to promote efficiency, and undermining the mission-critical objectives for a whole bunch of agencies to do this deeply unproductive and divisive culture war nonsense. And somehow FEMA became one of the targets in this effort. And I will just tell you, there are going to continue to be natural disasters. They can remove references to climate change on websites. They can fire the climate scientists. What they can't stop is the worsening problem of extreme weather driven by climate change. And so, if anything, we need to be talking about strengthening FEMA and making sure that it's much more proactive in getting communities ready and more resilient to face what we know is coming our way. And they're firing people, thousands of people at FEMA as we head into the summer with wildfires and hurricane season and everything else. So this is going to hurt people. It's going to cost lives. It's terribly destructive and wrong-headed. And all I can tell you on that score is I'm going to defend FEMA. I'm sure it's not perfect. I'm sure we can make it work better. And I want to work with people like you, Chief, that are in this business, that know what you're talking about, to try to make FEMA a lean, mean emergency management machine, right? That should be our goal, but you can't get rid of it. There's no way that states can make up for everything that FEMA does. They don't have the expertise, they don't have the resources. I mean, FEMA makes a tremendous difference in places where it's critically needed. So on the fire grants and other things that you're asking about, so much of that has gotten caught up in the funding freeze, and I'm glad that Shelter Code finally got the $6 million that was held up for a couple of months. That's great. I can only hope, though, that the partners that they have in doing that work are still ready to move forward, because that project was thrown into limbo and looked like it wasn't going to happen. Certainly we lost time in moving it forward, and you only have a narrow window of time to do these resiliency projects and get us ready for fire season. So we're going to be dealing with that on a case-by-case basis now. Literally, these individual grant applications have to sort of plead their case to the administration and beg for relief from these categorical freezes. And I will work with you on anything that's affecting you. I will do my best, but I gotta also be honest, they're not giving a lot of breaks to Democrats. I have Republican colleagues, like Tom Cole in Oklahoma, had a National Weather Service facility in his district spared from the same office closures, facility closures, layoffs, and other things that are hitting the rest of the country. Tom Cole happens to be the senior Republican appropriator in the House of Representatives. So they've got a little bit of a concierge system for some and not for others, and that is going to be part of the challenge, but I will try to get us whatever relief I can.
Hi, my name is Rima. I'm a local business owner. And I would like to know if the Democrats have a plan, maybe it's a secret plan you're discussing on Signal, that to deal with the disaster that will happen when Social Security and Medicare collapse.
Yeah. So our Republican colleagues swear that they are not going to get rid of Social Security and Medicare. And I will just tell you, I don't believe them. And I think all of you should be concerned about this. I'm not trying to just peddle alarmism, but when you look at what they are already doing to these agencies by way of their cuts and facility closures and everything else, they're hollowing out Social Security right before our eyes. They're eliminating thousands of personnel that are needed to process all of your Social Security claims, to troubleshoot whatever problems you have with the agency. Some of you are going to fortunately get that windfall elimination provision bump from the Social Security Administration, but what if they miscalculate it? What if they get it wrong? Now you are in for a bureaucratic odyssey, where there's nobody to answer the phones, where maybe you try to use their online tool, their portal, except that the website has crashed 10 times in the last week, and the people that maintain it are all being laid off. And maybe you would go into a Social Security Administration office to talk to a human being, except they're closing a whole bunch of them and making it hard, so you may have to drive hundreds of miles and wait hours and hours in line for that. And where is all this going? Well, to me, I think it's pretty clear. They're trying to set up dysfunction in the Social Security Administration so that they can point to the dysfunction that they are creating and say, see, the system is broken. The only solution is privatization. And that's absolutely where they're going, and they're not even subtle about this. I think you're sure to see similar efforts affecting Medicare. And you're definitely seeing it with Medicaid. You didn't ask about Medicaid, but if it's okay, I'd like to bring that up. Because many of you keep asking, what are Democrats doing? One of the things we're doing is making a big difference, and that is spotlighting the critical importance of Medicaid to this country and explaining and warning that Donald Trump and the Republicans are absolutely on a path to gut it. We know that because the budget resolution that they have passed calls for $880 billion in cuts in sort of the general part of the budget that includes Medicaid, and Medicaid's the only thing big enough to get them to numbers like that. So for now, they're saying, well, we didn't vote to specifically cut Medicaid, and we definitely want to protect Medicaid, but they have set in motion this thing that will necessarily involve gutting of Medicaid. And that vote could happen within a matter of weeks. So stay tuned for that. Here's the good news. Because we've been talking so much about Medicaid, the rest of the country now kind of understands that this is not just some kind of abstract program for the very poor. 1/3 of this country gets their primary health insurance from Medicaid. 1/3 of your fellow Americans. If you have a disability of any kind, 100% of you depend on Medicaid. 100% of disabled Americans. It is the lifeblood of our nursing home system in this country. It is necessary to keep the lights on in health clinics, including Indian health clinics all over this country. Without Medicaid, it all collapses. And that'll affect you too, because California is a state that expanded our Affordable Care Act coverage because we took the Medicaid expansion. And that brought many thousands of people in my district under the ACA marketplace so that you could actually get the subsidies to afford health insurance. If Medicaid expansion goes away, and it's very much something they're targeting, some of you may see your health premiums go up as much as 300%. So, we are changing the public conversation about Medicaid. We are creating tremendous pressure on my Republican colleagues to not go along with this. And Medicaid right now, in the latest public opinion poll, has a favorability rating of 81%. If you had asked that question just a few months ago, it would have been in the 50s. People didn't really understand Medicaid or what it does, and now they do, and now we're going to hold them accountable and hopefully begin pushing back and scoring some victories against these wrong-headed policies.
Hi, I hope you can hear me.
Yes, thank you.
My name is Michelle Boucher, and I just wanted to put a case on Medicaid. Medicare refused to pay for my wheelchair. I'm disabled, I'm on Social Security, and I have Medicaid. But Medicaid bought both my wheelchairs. These wheelchairs cost $30,000.
Stop, man.
And that Medicaid expansion, it helped me up. Oh, sorry, I'm getting emotional.
You're doing great.
But thank you so much for supporting me. And that program pays for my caregivers so that my husband can work a full-time job. They pay fairly well minimum wage, but if it wasn't for that, he couldn't work. So it is a hugely important program, and I just want to make sure that everyone understands how important it is. Not just for poor Americans. It's for my being disabled because I have MS totally out of my control. And it is so important that we support Medicaid because you never know who's the one getting benefits for it. So thank you.
Thank you. That was really powerful. I had no idea, as I was just defending Medicaid, that you would be the next question, but I couldn't have asked for a more eloquent and powerful explanation for what's at stake in this. Thank you for the courage and the eloquence and for being here. We're gonna defend Medicaid, I promise you. We're gonna do what we can. Let me put a little more politics on the Medicaid subject. One of the reasons it's such an important issue for us to talk about is that my Republican colleagues in rural America have a lot of constituents on Medicaid, even more than most of us who represent blue districts, right? So my district, the 2nd district, is roughly like the country. It's about a third of my constituents that depend on Medicaid. You go down to my colleague David Valadeo in the Central Valley, and it goes way up. A majority of his constituents depend on Medicaid. I think he won his last election by less than 10,000 votes. He's got more than 300,000 constituents on Medicaid. So Republicans who cut this incredible, vital program so that they can give tax cuts to billionaires are going to have a lot of explaining to do to their constituents, and we are going to be making them feel the heat, for sure.
Hello, Congressman Huffman. My name is Mary Burke. I ran for MCSD back in 2017 when Donald Trump was first elected, and I just put my candidacy, or just put it out there that I am running with the support of our current 5th District Supervisor for Supervisor in the 5th District. I have a couple of questions. One is, what advice do you have for somebody entering politics at this time? And secondly is, there are a lot of local offices that are available, and how do you see the connection between local politics and the work that you do at the federal level?
Thank you, Mary. I appreciate your leadership. So look, I think entering politics, especially at the local level, is more important than ever, because this is something we still have total control over, right? The politics of McKinleyville or Humboldt County or even California do not have to be the politics that you're seeing on your Twitter feed back in Washington right now. We can set our own values. We can set our own priorities. We can make these local government and our local communities what we want them to be. So that's my pitch. I hope many of you will think about getting involved and running for local office, because we probably need it now more than ever. It's also a place where we can keep kind of good policy in exile alive, So climate policy, obviously, is one that immediately comes to mind. We've got to keep making forward progress on the climate crisis, even though we know that for the short term, we've got folks at the national level who want to try to erase it, who want to try to memory hole the entire crisis. They won't succeed, but they will slow us down at the national level, and we need to make up for that at the subnational level, at the state and local and nonprofit and other levels. So I would say more important than ever, and I hope that folks are still are not totally turned off of politics by the toxicity that we see. It's one of the reasons I want to do events like this, because it helps us remember that we're all neighbors. We're all fellow Americans, part of this community, and working together, we can make it better. So thanks for running for office, and for the rest of you, think about it.
Hello, my name's Rebecca Stauffer, and first of all, thank you very much for your work on We the People Amendment. May it come to pass someday. That's not the question. I want to push back on you pretty dang hard.
All right.
I understand when you ran last time, you did not run to be in the minority. You did not run to be under a dictator with the country falling apart like this. The Democratic Party appears to be in chaos. The leadership is missing in action. Your toolkit is different, and I'm glad to hear you say that. However, it is not the toolkit we need at this moment. Now, some of your colleagues are going off script, and Ro Khanna went from Silicon Valley over to Bakersfield and spoke to people there. You are speaking to the choir here. There's virtually nothing you said today that I don't agree with you and I don't thank you for. But, sir, you need to do more right now. And show
are with us. We are hitting the streets on April 5th. Will you be with us?
Yes.
Thank you.
If I'm in Washington, the guy holding your microphone will be with you, I promise.
Wherever you are, there is a rally.
Yeah.
We need you guys out there doing more than business as usual.
Message received. I get it. I welcome it. I agree with it. You know, to the extent that you're wondering, you know, some have said, I think James Carville was the one who said, you know, Democrats should just take a break and wait for this to come around, and there'll be so much incompetency and overreaching that you just shouldn't do anything, just wait for it to fail. And you know, I respect him a lot. In fact, I was just with him talking about this a couple weeks ago. But I disagree. I mean, you guys are not going to allow me to just do nothing while I wait for Donald Trump to fail. Or should you? So I am in the fight camp, and I promise you, just because I'm here today doesn't mean I'm not doing a whole bunch of other things, including going to a Republican district, which I'm going to do. Okay? I'm absolutely going to do it. But I want to apologize in advance. I am no AOC or Bernie. So I'm not going to produce like 14,000 people at a rally, but within my modest ability, I'm going to do everything I can, I promise you.
Good afternoon, Congressman. My name is Caleb Hare. I'm a proud veteran of the United States Navy.
Thank you for your service.
I hear your run-of-the-mill baseball analogy. I hear your company line. I want to know though, what is specifically being done to protect habeas corpus and the First Amendment right. I do know that Cal Poly, one of the premier polytechnic institutions in the entire country, protested the war in Gaza. That has put our students on a list, and I want to know what is being done to protect them and what is being done to protect the right of habeas corpus. We cannot see our citizenship or our innocence without it, and ICE is taking plainclothes Gestapo goon squads piped up to the gills to take people off the street, take them halfway across the country to a for-profit ICE detention center, or even worse, to yet another Republican-founded, overseas torture slave labor gulag. What are we doing to protect our students from Cal Poly, and what are we doing to free the political prisoners already taken? Thank you, Congressman. All right, thank you.
So look, regardless of what you think about the content of some of these student protesters and other activists around the country that are starting to be targeted, you have to defend their First Amendment rights and their basic freedoms. Obviously, the right of habeas corpus and due process is essential. It's at the core of who we are as a nation. So I'm going to defend it in every way I can. In the case of Khalil, within days, I was on a letter signed by dozens of my colleagues objecting to this action, asking hard questions, and doing what Congress is supposed to do, engaging in oversight. And I will do that every single time I hear about this happening. Now, that said, I'm not trying to be run-of-the-mill or whatever the term was, but I don't have the ability to issue subpoenas, don't have the ability to hold hearings or to use some of the other tools that the majority in Congress has. I will try to lean on my Republican colleagues to create pressure for them to do it, because again, this shouldn't be partisan. The other thing I will do, and I do think this is important, I do think this makes a difference, is that my colleagues and I in Congress are working very closely with the groups that are litigating against all of these things. Groups like Democracy Forward and the ACLU and many others who have been preparing for some of these scenarios for a long time. And some of you may know that I saw some of this coming last year. When I learned about Project 2025, I knew I knew immediately that it was not just some think piece that the Heritage Foundation had put together, that it was different, that this was a very specific blueprint for authoritarianism, And so I launched this congressional task force to stop Project 2025, and we did our best to warn the country about it and to put it into the national conversation. We were so successful in elevating and educating people about Project 2025 that Donald Trump had to disclaim it. He lied, of course, but he said he had nothing to do with it, and we now know that that's absolutely a lie, because he's not only doing all of it, but he's doing even more. So the reason I bring that up is because I started working with some of these groups and with state attorneys general on the litigation plans and strategies to stop these things many months ago. And we now have set up in the Congress what we call the Litigation Rapid Response Task Force. I'm one of the members that's on it. I actually urged its creation. And we are very closely collaborating with the groups that are litigating. We are tracking not only the lawsuits and the court orders, but we're doing our best to track the compliance with those court orders and the accountability for that. If any of you want to know more about any of that, and it's a little overwhelming, I said there's over 130 lawsuits right now, and dozens of existing court orders. You almost can't track it all, but we have created some trackers, and actually Democracy Forward has created a really helpful tracker. If you want to go to the website, Democracy 2025, you can absolutely see a real-time tracking of all the latest cases and court orders. That's going to be a huge part of how we push back against this.
Hi, my name is Mary. I'm a retired nurse, and I volunteer at our local food bank, and I'm quite concerned about all kinds of social and health and welfare concerns, especially about kids losing funding at school for school lunches, and our local farmers losing money through the food banks buying their products. And I'm feeling like since the feds, since Washington isn't following the rules, and California gets about 22%, I think, of our funding from the feds, what if our treasury in California just holds up the money we send to Washington and keep it here in California for the programs that people desperately need?
Okay, good question. First of all, let me thank you for working with, is it Food for People that you're part of? Well, the entire hunger safety net that we have in this community and across the country is so incredibly important, more important now than ever, and you're absolutely right. Grants have been frozen, programs have been eliminated, staff has been laid off, and that means people are going to go without food. I just can't imagine something more cruel and wrong-headed than that policy, and I think you alluded to this too. Tribal impact aid, which is something that applies in a big way in Humboldt County because the Klamath Trinity School District serves 3 different Native American tribes and gets millions of dollars from this tribal impact aid program in order to provide meals to folks who are absolutely vulnerable and desperate for good, nutritious food. That's potentially going to go away. So we are going to fight that tooth and nail. I think I will have some Republican allies in other rural communities around the country that similarly depend on these programs just so people can not be hungry. And I will try to get them to stand up against this guy that they think they work for. I haven't seen a lot of courage in my Republican colleagues, but maybe this issue, maybe special education, maybe a few of these other things that cut way across party lines can finally begin to help us identify some Republican champions for these things that should be strongly bipartisan. Now, you asked about withholding tax payments. Again, I'm a congressman, not a tax advisor, but I would... There's a little reality that interferes with the intriguing concept of withholding our tax payments, and that is that we submit our tax payments directly to the federal government and not through the state of California. So there's really no way for us to engage in that kind of civil disobedience, as good as it might feel. And and I'm not going to advise anyone to withhold their tax payment. You should pay your taxes, folks. I want you to do that. We'll find other ways, though, to push back against these bad policies.
All right. Good afternoon. I'm a bit of a local gadfly. Most of our elected officials here know me by name. I'm also one of the younger people here. You know, there's a lot of silver-haired people here, and that's great. But you know, you're missing a lot of the younger people. There's an adorable little kid over there. You need to reach out to us more. You need to stop listening to James Carville. I loved it when I used to watch
I disagree with him. I told you I disagree with him.
I loved it when I used to watch him on Meet the Press when I was a teenager, but his time is, you know, it's not his time anymore. You need to be listening to the younger people. My question here is, we have more than half a dozen cabinet members who committed a serious national security breach. This is something that a member of the military, if they did that, would be court-martialed for. One of them is a member of the military. Tulsi Gabbard is a colonel in the U.S. Army. My question is, why are you or any of the other Democrats in the House of Representatives not moving to impeach all of these cabinet members?
Well, first of all, thank you for being here and making this a multi-generational dialogue. Your point is well taken. I often look around the rooms that I talk with in town halls and wish that there was a way to draw more young people into the conversation, because we need them. And I do listen to them, and I do want to listen to more. And I promise you, the time I spent with James Carville was at the Democratic Policy Retreat 2 weeks ago. We had a lot of young people, too. We had a lot of young influencers on social media, people telling us probably exactly what you're thinking and what you want us to hear, and I promise we are listening. By the way, I am what passes for young in the United States Congress. So, we'll keep doing what we can. Young people are a critical part of this process. To your question about impeachment, look, there's lots of impeachments that I would like to do. Starting with the President of the United States, who I think in any other time in the history of this nation would have already crossed the Rubicon into high crimes and misdemeanors so many times that, well, he's already been impeached successfully twice, but we'd be well underway with the third impeachment by now. The problem is, you know where impeachment lives in the Constitution? Article 1. Back to what I mentioned at the very beginning. One of the most distressing aspects of where we are in this moment is that Article 1 has ceased to have meaning because this Republican Congress is so either intimidated by or enraptured by, as part of this cult experience, President Donald Trump. They don't consider themselves an independent branch of government, and they would never allow articles of impeachment to develop into an inquiry or a vote. They would kill it instantly. And many of my Democrat colleagues know that it's just, in this Congress, in this politics, it's just dead letter that lives somewhere in Article 1 but has stopped having meaning. We got to get back to a Congress that is an independent branch of government and that does look for high crimes and misdemeanors, no matter who committed them, whether they're with your party or with the other party, and takes that constitutional role seriously. But right now, it would just feel good, maybe for a minute, to introduce an article of impeachment. But that's time I could have been spending on something that's actually productive. The danger in this moment, everyone agrees we got to do something. I hear it everywhere I go. And the danger in this moment is we all know we got to do something. This is something. Let's do it. And I hear a lot of somethings that are coming from a very well-intended and good place, but are just not going to lead to any outcomes that make a difference. And I have to try, kind of back to my point about not swinging at every pitch. I got to try to focus everything I got on the levers of influence that I think have a fighting chance of making a difference.
Rebecca Corrigan, and we all are aware that there are Republicans in Congress who are in the closet. And when it comes to expressing opinions about the president, and I want to know if, I have two questions really. Do you have any sense that the people who do dislike Trump, who are Republicans, do you have any sense that their numbers are growing? And what are the most effective ways that we, the people, can encourage those few Republicans to come out and be more courageous and oppose Trump's agenda?
Thank you for I'm so relieved because I thought, I really thought you were going to ask me about Lindsey Graham right there. I know, I shouldn't go there. But your question about whether any of them, you know, are maybe starting to dislike and be embarrassed and all this other stuff. I wish that were the case, but I sort of see it going the opposite direction. I think most of my Republican colleagues, even the ones who I know in their heart of hearts, think this guy is an embarrassment and a disaster and a menace. They are too afraid to say it, and I think it is mostly at this point about fear. When you look at something like Senator Thom Tillis and, you know, the confirmation process that we've just come through, where so many of these folks who are manifestly not just unqualified but disqualified for these critical positions they've been nominated to, and you have these senators, you know, at the start of the process just sort of, yeah, I'm really concerned. This guy's wildly disqualified. I don't think it makes sense to have RFK, you know, doing vaccination policy in this country. And you have Dr. Cassidy from Louisiana, you know, kind of saying, you know, I believe in the polio vaccine, all these other things. And then one by one, they all cave and vote to confirm these totally disqualified and incompetent and corrupt people who are now engaging in signal chats where they're spilling national secrets in reckless ways that would be court-martialing offenses for people in the military. So, no, I don't have a good or hopeful answer to your question. I think it's going in the opposite direction. I think what will change that is when we create some kind of a counterweight, a political counterweight to Donald Trump. We've just got to make sure that some of these Republicans in purple districts feel more pressure from their constituents than they feel from the MAGA trolls out there who are threatening to dox them and their family or to sue them for defamation or do any number of these other things that are meant to intimidate and bully them into submission. And that's up to all of us. It's up to just being part of an awakening and engagement that builds to a point all over this country that we take our country back. It does have to be fast, I agree, but it won't happen instantly. This will be a sustained effort. This is going to take months and months, and we're all going to have to stick with it. Who's next? Back here.
Hi, my name is Beth Herman. I work for Open Door Community Health
Great.
Centers. And we basically are responsible for the majority of healthcare in Humboldt County. And I'm very concerned with the cuts that we will no longer exist. And I just don't know what that looks like for Humboldt. So I'm wondering, you had mentioned that at some point we'll need to take to the streets. You mentioned that you are no AOC or Bernie, and I'm just wondering how we can encourage you to be more like that. Where is the line where we take to the streets to stop this fascist takeover of our government? Because we know from Nazi Germany it gets harder and harder.
Yeah.
We know from what we saw in Israel and what, not just Israel, but what the U.S. has done to the Palestinian people.
Yeah.
We see it just gets harder.
And by the way, I love your question, and thank you. I love the Open Door Clinic, and it is critical to the healthcare system of this country. Federally qualified health centers that depend in a big way on Medicaid and the Medicaid expansion that brings private pay customers into the Open Door Clinic. So it's all connected, it's all related. So much in your question to unpack there. I mean, let me start with the fact that we're talking about, taking to the streets and being part of a nonviolent but powerful citizen movement. Let's, whatever you may think about Gaza and Israel, the people of Israel are in the street now. They are standing up for democracy in their country in probably a better way than we are at this point. We've got to catch up to the good folks in Israel who are trying to fight against Netanyahu to restore the state of democracy there. It is not a lie. They're in the streets today, right now. And I think we will be too, because I think we share the value of democracy. We can get it, if you raise your hand, I promise we'll get to you. All right, now, when we talk about rallies and protests and all that, I'm already doing them. When I kind of jokingly and in a self-deprecating way say I'm not AOC and Bernie, I don't mean that I don't care just as much about these things. I will be there with you for these protests. I will be in the streets. I just don't have millions of Instagram followers and incredible charismatic star power. But I'll try to do everything I can, okay? I will use the tools that I've got and try to be part of it.
Congressman Huffman, thank you so much for having this town hall, and thank you to everyone for coming. It really does my heart good to see so many of my community members here. My name is Elizabeth Connor. I'm an political activist in our community. Affordable housing is usually my focus, but these days, and as some of you may know, Section 8 certificates have been frozen in the county for 2 months. My question is related to the balance of power in our country. When the framers of the Constitution, they knew they were coming from a king. So they had a judiciary, an executive, and a congressional branch, and a balance of power. They probably didn't foresee a madman who also wanted to be king. My question is, so they gave enforcement and military rights to the executive branch. The congressional controls the purse of that. What enforcement powers does the judicial branch have? And is there anything that you guys can do about it? Is there only public opinion in the streets, or does the judicial branch have some enforcement when we have a president who flaunts judicial orders?
Yeah. So we do have a third branch of government, and if Congress would get in the game, we would have 2 branches against 1 to make sure that we have these checks on abuse of power. I still have some confidence that the judicial branch is going to hold up, but make no mistake, there's a reason why Donald Trump is going after every judge who rules against him and trying to caricature them into some woke liberal, in some cases in preposterous ways. These are often conservative judges, trying to activate the tool of impeachment to go after judges just because they ruled against him. And I'm encouraged, actually, that Chief Justice John Roberts has spoken out about that. That's a pretty good sign that the judicial branch, even with a conservative Supreme Court that I disagree with very much, is still going to uphold the basic rule of law. And then the question is, what does that mean? I mean, we know that the Supreme Court, I don't mean to wax, into a history lesson here, but thanks to Marbury versus Madison, all of you lawyers out there, we know that there is judicial review, that the courts will rule on the legality of federal laws and executive actions. But then when they issue their orders, what happens? They have kind of a limited toolbox to actually enforce them. They have some civil contempt powers that can get around the president and go directly after some of these folks like Elon Musk, like these cabinet secretaries, and impose financial penalties and other civil contempt remedies against them, and the president can't do much about that. So there is power there. What we don't know is whether the president will actually comply with a final Supreme Court order that he absolutely hates. And there's sort of this legend out there that Andrew Jackson, once upon a time, said the Supreme Court has issued its ruling, now let them enforce it. Right? We've all sort of heard that apocryphal story. It didn't happen. This is what's interesting. The historians of Andrew Jackson will tell you he never said that. There was never a Supreme Court order that told him not to remove the Seminoles from Florida. It was a Supreme Court order against the state of Florida. And so when Andrew Jackson, as president, marched the Seminoles on the Trail of Tears, he was not violating a court order. If Donald Trump goes there, it will definitely be the first time in American history a president has openly defied a court order. And for that reason, I think a lot of the experts that I trust on this believe he won't do it. He may bluff. He may talk about doing it, but it would unleash the mother of all public backlashes. And look, let's keep our eyes wide open. He might go there. But if he does, I think the backlash will be unlike anything we've ever seen, and it will probably be his Waterloo. He hasn't done it with a final court order. Right now, he's saying with this Venezuelan deportation thing, right? They're fighting back and forth, and he's invoking state secrets to not give the details about when the planes flew and about the deportees. All of that is going to go back and forth through the appellate court system, and we will see. We will see whether there's accountability and compliance, but sometimes it does bounce around through the process of judicial review. Stay tuned, but I don't think it's fair to say that he is yet in open defiance of a final court order. He's using some rhetoric that's very disturbing, and we should be ready for that possibility, but we're not quite there yet.
Talk about Ukraine.
Congressman, I think we have time for 2 more questions.
Okay.
President Trump said that tariff is a beautiful word. The American public will pay for that, and that will allow the tax cuts from the rich. Can you explain that?
Are tariffs beautiful? Well, you know, I think the way Donald Trump is using tariffs is just part and parcel of his march towards consolidating authority and being a dictator. He wants to use tariffs so that he can kind of dangle them and withdraw them and just create these powerful levers that he can use to reward his friends and punish his enemies. And he's just trying to have power through tariffs. Now, you know, tariffs are a tool of trade. Trade is one of those Article 1 things. It's supposed to be Congress. And it's just one of the examples where over the years Congress has ceded its power to the executive. But we have passed legislation that gives the president, under certain emergency situations, the power to use tariffs to protect the national interest. And that's why what you see him doing in the case of many of these tariffs is declaring some bogus national emergency and then trying to use that emergency tariff authority. You may not have read about this a couple weeks ago when the government funding bill was passed, but one of the most disturbing things in it is a little provision where Congress agrees not to override Donald Trump's emergency authority to levy tariffs. And it's just one of many ways where this Congress has become a potted plant. We have the ability, even with these delegated authorities to the president, to override dumb tariffs, to override fake emergencies, and to reclaim that authority over tariffs. And this Congress has said, we don't want that. We're going to tie our own hands and just let Donald Trump do whatever he wants. So look, tariffs can be used productively if they're careful, but we know from history that in the 1930s that the Smoot-Hawley tariffs actually made the Great Depression a lot worse. The Great Depression began in 1929. Smoot-Hawley, I believe, was passed in 1930, and all of the tariffs that rolled out had a terribly devastating effect on our economy and also on our alliances that in just a few short years would, you know, become pretty important as we were fighting to save the free world. And so I see many of these same things unfolding again. Donald Trump using tariffs against our friends, against our allies, against our interests in ways that are going to drive up costs for all of you, but give him a lot of individual power. So it's something that I oppose, and I think all of you should as well.
your concern and issue you're going to try. I'm not feeling anything concrete, and I'm wondering also if you have taken a look at your moral compass lately. The concern I have came after watching a young Palestinian father holding his son's head and saying goodbye after Israeli forces slaughtered and shredded his body. That was very traumatizing. I care about what's happening in Palestine. I care about the tens of thousands of people that have been murdered. And I have not yet seen one move on your part to care, to do something, except continue with your votes for arms to Israel. You continually say they have a right to defend themselves. They are not defending themselves. They are butchering a people. It is called genocide. Where your human being has become disconnected to your politics.
Yeah. Thank you for the question. Look, I don't think I can probably satisfy you with my answer, but I will tell you this. If you're wondering if I find the violence in Gaza to be morally repugnant, I do. I promise you I really do. I'm horrified by it, including the scenes that you described, which are really happening, and I wish there was something I could do, more that I could do to stop it. But I've not been sitting on my hands. I know you disagree with my vote to provide assistance to the State of Israel, and I know some of you disagree with my position that the State of Israel has a right to exist. There's a debate about some of this stuff. But I've tried to be, well, let me try to answer the question, okay? I'm gonna do my best. It's easier when I'm not being yelled at, though. I believe the State of Israel does have a right to exist. That doesn't mean I support everything they do, okay? So there are contradictions and nuances here. It is an issue that does not reduce to an absolute binary the way I think it has been suggested, where there is where a complete cutoff of all support for the people of Israel is necessary to support the people of Palestine. I have tried to support Palestinians so many ways, in ways that many pro-Israel folks are upset with me for, okay? I'm probably in a position where I please absolutely no one on this issue, but I do believe that the State of Israel, as a Jewish and democratic state, should exist. I support them. And I also believe there should be a Palestinian state that has security and peace, and that we should end this conflict. And I oppose annexation, I oppose settlements, I oppose the Israeli government in so many ways that I've been very active on, but I understand it's not enough for some people. I think we will disagree on some of the details and nuances. And I'm opposing that. You do know this, right? You do know that I'm opposing those actions. I'm doing it in every way I can. But you know what? Maybe getting thousands and thousands of people not to vote for Democrats in the last election because they weren't perfect with what you want was a dumb idea. Maybe you should have some accountability for just totally misplaced advocacy on this issue. But let's move on. Is that our last question there? Last question.
Yes, I'm Mike Morton. I've lived in this county majority of my life. I want to first thank all you people for being polite. This man is here doing his duty. And if you don't think I'm medical, I don't care what your political views Well, after about 3 years of pounding the internet trying to find out why my son was locked in his room and taking this, psychiatrist went to the county. Spoke to the guy and I said, those are people you're talking to, you're going to look, have business with today? Yeah. Got up, I said, thank you, where are you going? He goes, this was the 5th time he was in Central Violence. I said, you don't have time. Went out with this guy, very good psychiatrist, he spells Steve, and is a friend of his. If you want a nightmare, don't care about what the research is doing nowadays for people. My son is so normal that it's unbelievable. But it's $3,000 a month that the government gives him to be normal. He can verify that. When you don't know your own son, when you're arguing, when you just don't know what to do, you're locked in. I don't have $3,000 a month to do that. And so when Trump and all these people are cutting all these jobs and these things the government and local people are doing, is a travesty. We can't do that. We cannot do that. It just can't happen. We've got to have, you're going to wake up one of these days and guess what? A family member's up and go, oh, you know, there are bombs in the couch. What? Bombs in the couch. So people, let me tell you, don't let it happen. Do not let this happen. This maniac, he doesn't care, he doesn't have any type of genetic ability to care for people. His own family member went to him for money. He said, my son needs this for his health reasons. Let him die. It doesn't matter. He's going to die anyway. How many people could do that kind of stuff? How many? How many of you could walk up with your family member and your son and say, let him die? Trump could. He did it. We know that. I'll tell you, I went with a friend of mine very hard on this thing before he was elected. You know what my friend told me? A lie will be around the world before truth gets its shoes on. That's right. And you know what? It's true. And then Trump gets elected into office. If you don't think that I was so broken mentally at this point, you'll never know how it feels. But you know what? I'm not quitting. My family keeps telling me to raise the ground. My daughter tells me you gotta stop this, you're going crazy. I'm not going crazy. I just want this world to be a better place to live in. What my great-grandson can have advantages I had, that all of you people have had. Look at your people beside you. Come on, give me a break here. Don't be yelling in the background trying to be rude. That's not part of it. Don't be screaming at the guy standing up there trying to do. What can you do that you're not doing? You're doing all you can do, or you wouldn't be here. This is Humboldt County, for Christ's sake.
That was beautiful. That was kind of a mic drop moment, really, because I think you summed up so much of what is at stake in this moment, and I think your family is fortunate to have a champion, an unbroken champion like you to fight for their mental health and other needs. And you're exactly right, because you brought it back to this moment we're in where these people who don't need Medicaid and don't need these programs that support the mental health services and medications they need to live productive lives, they're the richest people in the world. They're these oligarchs that will never feel any of this, and they are just zeroing out programs without any concern for what it means for people's lives. You gave us a great example for why that's a big, big deal. And why are they doing it? They're doing it so that they can have tax cuts. They're doing it so that they can have deregulation and other things to become even more fabulously wealthy. So we've got a lot to fight for in this moment. I think fighting for these things that make a difference in all of your lives, government does some good things. Things that are really important, like tell us what the weather forecast is going to be, right? And get us ready for fire season. Give us our health care. Give us our mental health. Lower prescription drug costs. All these things that make a difference in your lives. And they're being vilified. And federal employees are being vilified in this cruel way as if they're just numbers. And they're being fired as if this was an episode of The Apprentice and that, you know, the crowd just loves all of these mass firings. Well, these are human beings. These are human beings that serve all of us in really important ways that we should appreciate every single day. So for those of you that are federal employees, how many people here work for the federal government? Anyone? Or maybe did before you retired? We got a few. Thank you. Thank you for what you did for your fellow Americans. And I am sure that our federal government is not perfect. I really want to avoid getting trapped into this situation where I'm just defending the status quo as if, you know, we don't want it to work better, as if nothing can change. It can change, it can get better, but there's a way to do it and a way not to do it. You folks, I know most of you in this crowd are old enough to remember how Bill Clinton did it in the 1990s. He had a process called reinventing government that led to all kinds of major efficiencies. They reduced the federal workforce by 400,000 people, mostly through attrition, and they did it working hand in glove with the Congress, within the law, in ways that improved the government and led to a balanced budget and a surplus. We know there's a right way to do this when we want government to work better. Even when we do have a deficit problem, we do have a debt problem, how you tackle it matters. And I think we should take a page from the 1990s and try to do it thoughtfully and strategically and effectively. What we're seeing from this administration is none of that. And by the way, it's not in service of lowering the debt or deficit. It's in service of tax cuts and deregulation for the richest people on this planet. So thank you for understanding that. Thank you for helping draw that connection, because it's a super central part of this moment that we're all in, and I think a very appropriate note for us to end on. Thank you for a great conversation. We're going to have more of them. Thank you.
That concludes the town hall for today. I might try to take a walk and just get a look at the crowd. Photo op with Huffman here happening in front of us. Nice to see you. Let's see.
I think we may win the lawsuit, but it'll kind of be a weird victory because he'll just turn around. Yeah, I'm going to oppose that.
There's not enough time, is there?
Okay.
Anyway, I just want
advantage of the internet and trying to do that.
But there's so many young people, they want to participate.
Yeah.
They're the ones who have the knowledge for that.
You're right.
Go ahead and bring them.
We brought a bunch of them to our retreat. We are going on their platform. We gotta get this on. Okay. Thank you, everybody.
Hey, live on Redheaded Black Belt.
Hi.
Just wanted to see if you had any thoughts. We appreciated your comment during the town hall. So, how do you feel about the response?
I'm pretty good. I'd like to see if I can say hi to him right now.
Absolutely, get him.
I don't know whose it is.
Oh, I'm so sorry. It's mine. Thank you so much. I would have stepped on my own thing. Sorry.
So I was ready to do that. I was ready to do that. I got out.
Like MRC's got some stuff held up and all that kind of stuff.
Yeah,
I am.
Can I get a card too?
Sure.
Yeah, I write them. I call and write almost every day.
Oh yeah.
Okay, so little hard to get in there. Huffman is a popular guy at this town hall, it seems, and there are people actually who are still expressing some dissent as Huffman kind of inches towards the door here. So with that, we will shut it down, and everybody check on Redheaded Black Belt for further updates and more information.
Does she have